The desert wind howled across the barren landscape as Dr. Sarah Mitchell's Jeep broke down 20 miles from the nearest town. She sat in the driver's seat, staring at the steam rising from her engine, knowing she was in serious trouble. The Arizona sun beat down mercilessly, and her water supply was running dangerously low. She had been traveling to a remote medical clinic to provide free health care to underserved communities when her vehicle decided to give up on her. Sarah stepped out of the Jeep and looked around at the endless expanse of red rocks and sparse vegetation. She had always been independent, having grown up in foster care and worked her way through medical school without help from anyone. At 28, she was known for her determination and refusal to give up, but this situation was testing even her limits. As she tried to figure out her next move, Sarah heard a faint crying sound carried by the wind. At first, she thought it might be an animal, but as she listened more carefully, she realized it was a child. Following the sound, she walked about a quarter-mile from her broken Jeep and discovered a small Native American girl, no more than 6 years old, sitting alone under a scraggly mesquite tree. The child was clearly in distress. Her dark hair was matted with dust, her clothes were torn, and most concerning to Sarah's trained medical eye, the girl showed clear signs of severe dehydration and malnutrition. Her lips were cracked, her skin was pale, and she seemed barely conscious. "Hello, sweetie," Sarah said gently, kneeling down beside the girl. "My name is Sarah. What's your name?" The child looked up at her with large, frightened eyes, but didn't respond. Sarah could see that the girl was Native American, likely from one of the local tribes, but she had no idea how the child had ended up alone in this desolate place. Without hesitation, Sarah went back to her Jeep and retrieved her medical bag and remaining water supply. She knew that sharing her limited water meant putting herself at greater risk, but she couldn't let a child suffer when she had the means to help. She returned to the girl and began providing immediate care. Using her medical training, Sarah carefully gave the child small sips of water and examined her condition. The girl was severely malnourished and dehydrated, but with proper care, Sarah believed she could stabilize her condition. As Sarah worked, she noticed the child wearing a small beaded bracelet with intricate Apache designs. This gave her a clue about the girl's heritage, but she still had no idea how to contact the child's family or get them both to safety. Hours passed as Sarah continued to care for the girl under the meager shade of the mesquite tree. She used her medical knowledge to monitor the child's vital signs and gradually rehydrate her. The girl began to respond better, though she still hadn't spoken a word. As the sun began to set, painting the desert sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Sarah heard the sound of horses approaching. She looked up to see 3 Native American men on horseback riding toward them. Her heart raced, unsure whether these strangers represented help or danger. The lead rider was a man who appeared to be in his early 30s, with long black hair and strong features that spoke of Apache heritage. He wore traditional clothing mixed with modern elements, and his presence commanded respect. Behind him rode 2 other men, slightly older, who Sarah assumed were tribal elders based on their dignified bearing. The lead rider dismounted and approached Sarah and the child with cautious but purposeful steps. His eyes immediately went to the little girl, and Sarah saw a flash of relief and concern cross his face. "Ayanna," he said softly, and the child looked up and whispered something in what Sarah assumed was Apache. The man then turned to Sarah, his dark eyes studying her carefully. "You are the one who helped her," he said in accented but clear English. "Yes," Sarah replied, standing up slowly with her hands visible to show she meant no harm. "I found her dehydrated and malnourished. I'm a doctor. I've been giving her water and basic medical care." The man nodded and spoke rapidly in Apache to the 2 elders, who dismounted and came to examine the child. Sarah watched as they gently lifted Ayanna, speaking to her in their native language with obvious love and relief. "I am Running Bear," the lead man said to Sarah. "This is my daughter, Ayanna. She wandered away from our camp 3 days ago during a ceremony. We have been searching everywhere for her." Sarah felt a wave of relief, knowing the child was with her family. But she also noticed something in Running Bear's expression that she couldn't quite identify. It seemed like more than just gratitude. "Is she going to be okay?" Sarah asked, her medical instincts still focused on the child's welfare. "Because of what you did, yes," Running Bear replied. "But you risked your own life to save hers. You shared your water when you were also stranded. This is not something my people take lightly." One of the elders spoke to Running Bear in Apache, and Sarah saw a serious conversation taking place between them. She didn't understand the language, but she could tell that something significant was being discussed. "My father and my uncle are saying that you have shown great courage and selflessness," Running Bear explained. "In our tradition, when someone saves the life of a tribe member's child, especially at great personal risk, they become part of our family. You have earned a debt that cannot be repaid with simple thanks." Sarah felt overwhelmed by the gravity of what Running Bear was telling her. "I don't need any repayment," she said. "I'm just glad Ayanna is safe." Any doctor would have done the same thing. Running Bear shook his head. "You do not understand. This is not about what you need or want. This is about honor and tradition that goes back generations. You saved my daughter when you could have conserved your resources for yourself. You chose to risk your life for hers." The elder, who appeared to be the oldest of the 3 men, approached Sarah and spoke directly to her, though she couldn't understand his words. Running Bear translated, "My grandfather says that the spirits guided you to find Ayanna. He says that this was not chance, but destiny. In our culture, this creates a bond that cannot be broken." Sarah looked around at the 3 men and the little girl, feeling like she had stumbled into something much bigger than a simple rescue. The desert, which had seemed so hostile just hours before, now felt charged with an energy she didn't fully understand. "What does this mean exactly?" she asked. Running Bear exchanged another look with the elders before responding. "It means that you are now under the protection of our tribe. It means that your well-being is our responsibility, just as Ayanna's was yours when you found her. And it means that there are certain obligations that come with this bond." The way he said the last part made Sarah feel like there was much more to this tradition than he was immediately explaining. She could see in his eyes that this moment was changing something fundamental, not just for her, but for all of them. As darkness began to fall over the desert, Running Bear made arrangements for Sarah and her broken jeep. 2 of the tribe members would stay with her vehicle and arrange for it to be towed, while Running Bear would escort Sarah back to their tribal lands to ensure her safety. "But I need to get to the medical clinic," Sarah protested. "People are expecting me." "The clinic will be contacted," Running Bear assured her. "Tonight, you are our guest. Tomorrow we will discuss what comes next." As Sarah climbed onto the horse behind Running Bear, holding on to him as they rode through the desert night toward the Apache tribal lands, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just taken a turn she never could have anticipated. The stars above seemed brighter than she had ever seen them, and the warm desert air carried the scent of sage and something else she couldn't identify. Behind them, little Ayanna rode safely with one of the elders. Her health already improving thanks to Sarah's quick medical intervention, but Sarah sensed that this rescue had set in motion events that would change everything she thought she knew about her future. The ride to the tribal settlement took nearly 2 hours, and during that time, Running Bear shared more about their traditions and culture. Sarah learned that he was not just Ayanna's father, but also a respected leader in their community, responsible for maintaining many of the old ways while helping his people navigate the modern world. When they finally reached the Apache settlement, Sarah was struck by how the traditional and contemporary blended seamlessly. Modern homes sat alongside traditional structures, and she could see solar panels and satellite dishes mixed with dream catchers and ceremonial spaces. Running Bear helped her down from the horse and led her to a comfortable guest house. "Rest tonight," he said. "Tomorrow the council will meet to discuss your place among us." As Sarah settled into the simple but comfortable accommodations, she reflected on the extraordinary day she had experienced. She had started the morning as a doctor, traveling to provide medical care, and now she found herself in the middle of an Apache community, bound to them by traditions she was only beginning to understand. Through her window, she could see Running Bear speaking with several tribal elders around a fire, their serious expressions illuminated by the flickering flames. She had the distinct feeling that they were discussing her, and that tomorrow would bring revelations that would challenge everything she thought she knew about her independent, carefully planned life. Little did Sarah know that her act of compassion in saving Ayanna had activated an ancient Apache tradition that would bind her to this community and to Running Bear himself, in ways that would transform both of their destinies forever. Sarah woke to the sound of children laughing and the aroma of coffee and something that smelled like fresh bread. Sunlight streamed through the windows of the guest house, and for a moment she forgot where she was. Then the memories of the previous day came flooding back. The broken Jeep, finding Ayanna, meeting Running Bear, and the mysterious talk of traditions and obligations. She dressed quickly and stepped outside to find the Apache settlement bustling with morning activity. Children played between the houses while adults went about their daily routines. The scene was peaceful and welcoming, but Sarah still felt like an outsider looking into a world she didn't fully understand. "Dr. Mitchell?" a voice called out. She turned to see Running Bear approaching, carrying a cup of coffee. "I thought you might need this." "Thank you," Sarah said, accepting the warm cup gratefully. "And please, call me Sarah." Running Bear nodded. "Sarah, did you sleep well?" "Yes, actually. Better than I expected given everything that happened yesterday." She took a sip of the coffee, which was strong and perfectly prepared. "How is Ayanna this morning?" "Much better thanks to your care. She is with her grandmother, eating breakfast and telling everyone about the kind doctor who saved her life." Running Bear's expression grew more serious. "The tribal council has asked to meet with you this morning. They want to explain the significance of what happened yesterday." Sarah felt a knot form in her stomach. "Running Bear, I appreciate your hospitality, but I really need to get back to my work. People are depending on me at the clinic." "I understand your dedication to helping others," Running Bear replied. "That is exactly why the council needs to speak with you. Your willingness to sacrifice for Ayanna has created a bond that our people take very seriously. To ignore it would be to dishonor both you and our ancestors." Before Sarah could respond, an elderly woman approached them. She had kind eyes and moved with the dignity that comes with age and wisdom. Running Bear immediately stood straighter, showing clear respect for the woman. "This is my grandmother, Elena," Running Bear said. "She is one of the most respected elders in our tribe." Elena studied Sarah for a long moment, then spoke in Apache to Running Bear. They had a brief conversation before Elena switched to English. "You have medicine hands," Elena said to Sarah. "I can see it in your spirit. Yesterday you chose to give life instead of protecting yourself. This is a sacred act." Sarah felt moved by the woman's words, but also confused. "I'm a doctor," she said simply. "It's what I'm trained to do." Elena smiled. "Many people have training, but few have the heart to risk everything for a stranger's child. Come, the council is ready for you." Sarah followed Elena and Running Bear to a traditional building in the center of the settlement. Inside, 7 tribal elders sat in a semicircle, with Running Bear's grandfather, whom she remembered from the desert rescue, in the center position. The atmosphere was formal, but not threatening. Elena gestured for Sarah to sit in a chair facing the council, while Running Bear took his place among the elders. Sarah realized this was even more serious than she had initially thought. Running Bear's grandfather spoke first, with Elena translating his Apache words into English. He says that our people have lived by certain laws for thousands of years, Elena explained. These laws are not written in books, but carried in our hearts and passed down through generations. One of these laws concerns the debt owed when someone saves the life of a tribal member. Another elder spoke, and Elena continued translating. When you found Ayanna and chose to risk your own survival to save hers, you invoked one of our most sacred traditions. In the old days, such an act would make you family. Today, we honor this tradition, but we also understand the modern world. Sarah leaned forward, trying to understand what this meant for her. What exactly are you saying? Running Bear spoke directly to her this time. In our tradition, when someone saves a tribal member's child at great personal risk, they become bound to our community. Historically, this often meant marriage into the tribe to formalize the connection. Sarah's eyes widened. Marriage? Elena held up a hand to calm her. Times have changed, dear. We understand that you have your own life, your own path. But the spiritual bond that was created cannot be ignored. We must find a way to honor both the tradition and your independence. The eldest council member spoke at length, gesturing occasionally towards Sarah and Running Bear. Elena listened carefully before translating. He says that the spirits brought you to Ayanna for a reason. He believes that your destiny is connected to our people now, whether you understand it or not. He suggests a compromise that honors our ways while respecting your choices. Sarah felt overwhelmed by the weight of their expectations, but she could also sense the genuine care and respect these people had for their traditions. What kind of compromise? Running Bear leaned forward. We propose that you spend time among us, learning our ways and allowing us to learn from your medical knowledge. During this time, you would be under our protection and considered part of our family. If, after a full season, you choose to leave, we will honor your decision and help you return to your former life. And if I choose to stay? Sarah asked. The council members exchanged meaningful looks before Elena answered. If you choose to stay, you would be formally adopted into the tribe. You would have all the rights and responsibilities of a tribal member, including... She paused, glancing at Running Bear. Including the possibility of formalizing the bond through marriage to Running Bear, if both parties consent. Sarah felt her heart racing. She looked at Running Bear, trying to read his expression. His dark eyes met hers steadily, but she couldn't tell what he was thinking or feeling about this arrangement. This is a lot to process, Sarah said finally. Yesterday I was just a doctor driving to a clinic, and now you're talking about marriage and changing my entire life. Running Bear spoke up. No one is forcing you into anything, Sarah. This tradition exists to honor your sacrifice, not to trap you. We are offering you a choice, but we needed you to understand the significance of what happened in the desert. Elena stood and approached Sarah. Child, you have spent your life healing others. Perhaps it is time for you to allow yourself to be part of something larger, to find healing for your own spirit. Sarah realized that somehow, these people seemed to understand her better than she understood herself. Her lifelong independence, born from growing up without family, had always been both her strength and her isolation. Can I think about this? Sarah asked. Can I see what life here would really be like before making such a major decision? Of course, Running Bear replied. In fact, we insist on it. You should understand what you would be choosing before making any commitment. The council meeting concluded with the decision that Sarah would spend the next week living among the Apache people, participating in their daily life and learning their customs. During this time, she would also provide medical care to community members who needed it, combining her skills with their traditional healing practices. As they left the council building, Running Bear walked with Sarah toward the settlement's medical facility, a modern clinic that served the entire community. "Are you nervous about this arrangement?" Sarah asked as they walked. Running Bear considered her question carefully. "I am honored that the council believes our bond is strong enough to warrant these traditions. But I am also concerned about your happiness. Marriage should be based on love and choice, not just obligation and tradition." Sarah appreciated his honesty. "What do you think about me honestly? We barely know each other." "I think you are brave and compassionate," Running Bear replied. "I think you have a strong spirit and a good heart. But you are right. We barely know each other. This week will be as much about discovery for me as it is for you." They reached the clinic, where Sarah was introduced to Maria, a Apache nurse practitioner who ran the facility. Maria explained that they served not only the tribal community, but also provided care to anyone in the region who needed medical attention, regardless of their ability to pay. "Dr. Mitchell," Maria said, "we've heard about what you did for little Ayanna. Would you be willing to help us here while you're staying with us? We always need more medical expertise, especially with some of our older community members who have complex health issues." Sarah felt immediately at home in the clinical setting. "Of course. I'd be happy to help in any way I can." As the day progressed, Sarah found herself working alongside Maria and other tribal members to provide medical care. She was impressed by their combination of modern medical techniques with traditional healing practices that had been used for generations. Running Bear stopped by the clinic several times throughout the day, sometimes bringing community members who needed care, other times just checking on how Sarah was adjusting. She noticed that he was clearly respected and trusted by everyone in the community. During lunch, Sarah and Running Bear sat together outside the clinic, eating traditional Apache bread and stew that his grandmother had prepared. "Tell me about your life before yesterday," Running Bear said. "I want to understand who you really are." Sarah found herself opening up about her childhood in foster care, her determination to become a doctor, and her dedication to providing medical care to underserved communities. She talked about her independence and her fear of depending on others, born from years of disappointment and abandonment. Running Bear listened without judgment, occasionally asking thoughtful questions that showed he was really paying attention to her words. "Your independence is admirable," he said finally. "But isolation is not the same as independence. You can be strong and still be part of a community." Sarah realized that his words touched on something she had been struggling with her entire adult life. She had always equated independence with being alone, but maybe there was another way to think about it. As evening approached, Elena invited Sarah to her home for dinner with Running Bear's family. Sarah met his aunts, uncles, and cousins, all of whom welcomed her warmly. Little Ayanna was there too, fully recovered and excited to show Sarah her drawings. "You're the doctor who saved me," Ayanna said, climbing onto Sarah's lap. "Daddy says you might stay with us forever." Sarah looked across the room at Running Bear, who was engaged in conversation with his uncle about tribal business. The domestic scene felt surprisingly comfortable, like she could actually imagine herself being part of this extended family. After dinner, Running Bear walked Sarah back to the guest house. The desert night was clear and filled with stars, creating an intimate atmosphere for conversation. "How do you really feel about this traditional arrangement?" Sarah asked as they walked slowly through the settlement. Running Bear stopped walking and turned to face her. "Honestly, I feel like my life changed yesterday just as much as yours did. I have been focused on my responsibilities to the tribe, on preserving our culture and helping our people navigate the modern world. I never expected to find myself bound to someone through these ancient traditions." "Do you feel trapped by this?" Sarah asked. "No," Running Bear replied thoughtfully. "I feel curious, intrigued. You are unlike anyone I have ever met. Your dedication to helping others, your willingness to sacrifice for a stranger's child. These qualities are rare and precious." Sarah felt a flutter of attraction, but she also felt scared by how quickly her feelings were developing. "This is happening very fast." "Yes, it is," Running Bear agreed, "but sometimes the most important things in life happen quickly. The question is whether we are brave enough to trust in something larger than our plans and expectations." As they reached the guest house, Sarah realized that her week of discovery among the Apache people was going to challenge everything she thought she knew about herself, about family, and about what it meant to truly belong somewhere. The traditional guest house felt less foreign tonight, and as Sarah prepared for bed, she found herself wondering what tomorrow would bring in this unexpected journey of the heart and spirit. 6 days had passed since Sarah's life had been turned upside down in the desert, and she could hardly believe how much she had changed in such a short time. Each morning brought new experiences that challenged her assumptions about community, family, and what it meant to belong somewhere. She had spent her days working in the clinic alongside Maria, treating everything from childhood injuries to helping elderly tribal members manage chronic conditions. The work was rewarding, but what surprised Sarah most was how naturally she had begun incorporating traditional Apache healing practices with modern medicine. Elena had taught her about medicinal plants that grew in the desert, and Sarah found that combining this ancient knowledge with her medical training produced remarkable results. More importantly, she had spent time with Running Bear and his extended family, gradually understanding the depth and richness of Apache culture. She had participated in sunrise ceremonies, learned to prepare traditional foods, and listened to stories that had been passed down for generations. For someone who had grown up without family traditions or cultural roots, the experience was both overwhelming and deeply moving. Today was her final day before she had to make her decision about staying or returning to her former life. Sarah woke before dawn, feeling restless and uncertain about what choice she would make. She dressed quietly and stepped outside, hoping a walk in the cool morning air would help clear her mind. To her surprise, she found Running Bear sitting on a bench outside her guest house, watching the sunrise paint the desert landscape in shades of gold and pink. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked with a gentle smile. Sarah sat down beside him, maintaining a respectful distance while still feeling the comfort of his presence. "I keep thinking about everything that's happened this week. A week ago, I thought I had my whole life figured out. And now? Now I realize I might have been living only half a life," Sarah admitted. "I've been so focused on being independent and self-sufficient that I forgot what it feels like to be part of something bigger than myself." Running Bear nodded thoughtfully. "Independence and connection are not opposites. In our culture, the strongest individuals are those who understand their place within the community while still maintaining their unique gifts and abilities." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the settlement come to life as people began their morning routines. Sarah had come to love the rhythm of life here, the way everyone looked out for each other while still respecting individual choices and contributions. "Running Bear," Sarah said finally, "I need to ask you something directly. If I decide to stay, what would that mean for us personally? Not just the tribal traditions, but for you and me as individuals?" Running Bear turned to face her fully, his dark eyes serious but warm. "Sarah, this week has been a revelation for me, too. When the council first explained the traditional obligations, I was prepared to honor them out of duty and respect for our ways. But somewhere during these past 6 days, duty became something else." "What do you mean?" "I mean that I have come to care for you not because tradition demands it, but because of who you are. Your strength, your compassion, the way you light up when you're helping someone heal, these are not qualities I was assigned to appreciate. They are qualities I have chosen to admire." Sarah felt her heart racing. She had been fighting her growing attraction to Running Bear all week, telling herself it was just the intensity of the situation and the exotic nature of her circumstances. But his words made her acknowledge that her feelings had grown far beyond mere fascination. I care about you too, she said quietly. More than I expected, more than I'm comfortable with, honestly. Why does it make you uncomfortable? Sarah considered his question carefully. Because caring about someone means risking being hurt. It means trusting someone else with your happiness. I've never been very good at that. Neither have I, Running Bear admitted. I have always put the needs of the tribe before my personal desires. I never expected to meet someone who would challenge that priority. Before Sarah could respond, little Ayanna came running toward them, her grandmother Elena walking more slowly behind her. Sarah, Sarah, Ayanna called out. Grandmother Elena says today is decision day. Are you going to stay and be my new family? Sarah's heart clenched at the child's innocent hope. She knelt down to Ayanna's level and took her small hands. Ayanna, you will always be special to me, no matter what I decide. You're the brave little girl who brought me into this wonderful community. Elena approached and placed a gentle hand on Sarah's shoulder. Child, the council is ready to hear your decision whenever you are ready to give it. Sarah stood up, feeling the weight of the moment. I'd like to speak with them this morning. Very well, Elena said. But first, there is something else you should see. Elena led Sarah, Running Bear, and Ayanna to a small building Sarah hadn't visited before. Inside, she was amazed to find a modern medical facility that was more advanced than many urban hospitals she had worked in. This was built 5 years ago with funds from several grants and tribal enterprises, Elena explained. We had hoped to find a permanent doctor to run it, but no one has been willing to make the commitment to live among us long term. Sarah walked through the facility, examining the equipment and supplies. This is incredible. You could provide advanced medical care to people throughout this entire region. That was the plan, Running Bear said. But we need someone with the medical expertise and the cultural sensitivity to bridge our traditional healing practices with modern medicine. We need someone who understands that healing is about more than just treating symptoms. Sarah realized they were offering her more than just a place in their community. They were offering her the opportunity to create the kind of medical practice she had always dreamed of, one that served people who truly needed care, that honored both scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom, and that treated patients as whole human beings rather than just collections of symptoms. This is exactly the kind of work I've always wanted to do, Sarah said, her voice filled with wonder. We know, Elena said with a knowing smile. We have been watching you work this week. You are already practicing medicine the way our people understand healing should be practiced. An hour later, Sarah stood before the tribal council for the second time, but this time she felt like she truly understood what was being offered to her. This wasn't just about honoring a tradition or fulfilling an obligation. This was about choosing a life that aligned with her deepest values and desires. Honored elders, Sarah began, this week has taught me more about myself than I learned in years of living alone. You have shown me that independence and connection can coexist, that strength can be found in community, and that healing is about much more than medical knowledge. She paused, looking around at the faces that had become familiar and dear to her. I have decided that I want to stay. I want to become part of this community, to serve as your doctor, and to honor the bond that was created when I found Ayanna in the desert. The council members smiled and nodded their approval, but Running Bear's grandfather held up a hand before speaking in Apache. Elena translated. He says that choosing to stay is the first step, but he wants to know if you understand what this means regarding your relationship with Running Bear. Sarah turned to look at Running Bear, who was watching her intently. She had been thinking about this aspect of her decision constantly. I understand that tradition suggests Running Bear and I should marry to formalize my place in the tribe, Sarah said carefully. But I believe that marriage should be based on love and mutual choice, not just obligation. Running Bear stood up and spoke directly to the council in Apache, his voice respectful but firm. Elena smiled as she listened, then turned to Sarah. Running Bear has just told the council that he agrees with you completely. He has asked for permission to court you properly, to give your relationship time to develop naturally while you establish yourself in our community. Sarah felt a wave of relief and happiness. This was exactly what she had hoped for. The opportunity to build a real relationship with Running Bear without the pressure of predetermined expectations. The council agrees, Elena continued. They say that a marriage built on genuine love will be stronger and more blessed than one based only on duty. Over the following months, Sarah's new life took shape in ways she had never imagined possible. She became the head of the tribal medical facility, developing programs that served not only the Apache community, but people throughout the region. Her approach, which combined advanced medical techniques with traditional healing practices, became a model that attracted attention from medical schools and tribal communities across the country. More personally, her relationship with Running Bear developed slowly and naturally. They worked together on community projects, shared quiet evenings talking about their hopes and dreams, and gradually built the kind of deep trust and understanding that forms the foundation of lasting love. Sarah learned to speak Apache, participated fully in tribal ceremonies, and discovered that belonging to a community didn't diminish her independence. It actually made her stronger and more effective in everything she did. One evening, exactly 1 year after she had first found Ayanna in the desert, Running Bear asked Sarah to walk with him to the place where they had first met. The desert looked the same, but everything else had changed completely. Sarah, Running Bear said as they stood under the mesquite tree where she had first cared for Ayanna, this year has been the happiest of my life. You have brought healing to our community and joy to my heart. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a beautiful ring that combined traditional Apache silverwork with a modern design. Will you marry me? Not because of tradition or obligation, but because I love you and want to spend my life with you. Sarah looked at the ring, then at the man who had become her partner in every sense of the word. Yes, she said without hesitation. Yes, because I love you too, and because I've finally learned what it means to be truly home. As Running Bear slipped the ring onto her finger, Sarah reflected on how a single act of compassion had led her to find not just love, but a completely new understanding of what it meant to live a meaningful life. She had saved Ayanna from hunger and thirst, but in doing so, she had discovered that her own soul had been hungry for exactly this kind of connection and purpose. 6 months later, Sarah and Running Bear were married in a ceremony that honored both Apache traditions and Sarah's personal beliefs. Little Ayanna served as flower girl, proud to have brought her two favorite people together. Elena officiated the ceremony, blessing their union and formally welcoming Sarah as a full member of the tribe. As Sarah looked out at the community that had become her family, she realized that her promise to help Ayanna had evolved into something much larger. She had found her calling as a healer, her soulmate in Running Bear, and her place in a community that valued both tradition and progress. The desert wind that had once seemed so threatening now felt like a blessing, carrying the scent of sage and the promise of new beginnings. Sarah's journey from independence to interconnection was complete, and she had never been happier to be exactly where she belonged.